Again the feelings dwindled as I left the zone around her door. As soon as I had reached the third step of the next flight, I turned round as before and said, "Again." We did it again, but this time it didn't work. The moment I was in seemed to expand and become a pool. A still, clear pool that swallowed everything up in its calm contentedness. It's broken it won't be right. Let's take it from the top again. Someone should clean that patch up too. Her bag had leaked from its bottom right corner, leaving a wet, sticky looking patch on the floor. Someone came out and mopped this up. Right now, the pool, the lightness, and the gliding, there was nothing I could do though. It wouldn't be right if the floor wasn't the right texture. I gathered myself together and announced, "Okay, do it. I'll move on." She'd steered the rubbish bag through its horizontal arc around her legs and, stooping, started to lower it to the ground when suddenly it slipped out of her hand and fell with a loud clunk. She bent over to pick it up, but I stopped her. "Don't bother," I said. I answered her as before. Again I felt the sense of gliding, of light density. "It looks too clean now," I said, when they'd done this. Annie came out again and looked. "We'll have to dust and sand it again," she said. "How long will that take?" I asked. "A good hour till it looks just like it did before." "An hour?" I repeated. "That's too... I need it to... My voice petered out. I was quite upset. I wanted to slip back into it now. I walked past the pianist's flat. The sound of his music grew crisper and sharper as I passed his door, then once again soft and floaty as I moved down from his floor. On the landing below his, I passed the boring couple's flat. This is where the Hoover noise was coming from. The Hoover was being shunted back and forth across a carpet by the sound of it. I'd come back to the liver lady later, and besides, she was just part of the reenactment. I had a lot still to do, a lot more space to cover. The wife reenactor would be doing it. I moved on, through a patch of neutral space, down past the motorbike enthusiast's flat. His clangings were still coming from the courtyard, but with less of an echo now. Maybe the trees and the swings were getting in the way down there. I carried on down to the lobby. Here the sensation started returning, the same sense of zinging and intensity. My concierge was standing as instructed, standing quite still in the middle of the lobby with her white ice hockey mask on. I cocked my head to one side, then the other. I crouched to the ground and looked at her from there. She looked like a statue in a harbour, towering above the granite, or a spire, a reactor, a communications mast. Being this close to her felt overexposed after a while, so I opened up her cupboard door and stepped inside. To the left, my right, there was a cupboard. Beside that, another strip of white, neutral space. As I walked around her in a circle, looking at her from all sides, her stumpy arms and featureless face seemed to emanate an almost toxic level of significance. The cupboard door was slightly ajar. I looked out through its slit at the concierge standing in the lobby. She was standing with her back turned to me, the mask straps fastened at the back of her head. Her shoulders rose and fell as she breathed. The view I had of her was like a murderer's view. Here were the broom, the mop and the bucket, and the industrial hoover, in all the positions that I first remembered and then sketched them in. There was another object too, a strangely shaped machine for cleaning granite floors. It hadn't come to me initially, but then when I'd found it stored in there one morning, it hadn't seemed wrong either, so I kept it. I stayed in the cupboard for a long time. In here it felt intimate, warm. I felt I'd burrowed to one of the innermost chambers of the vision I'd realised all around me. It was a good position, well placed, with good sightlines. I was about to step into the garden when I heard the main door open behind me, the one that led onto the street. I turned around. A small boy had just walked in. He was one of the pianist's pupils arriving for a lesson. Myself, the small boy, and the concierge. He looked frightened. I smiled at him and said, "Just carry on. It will all be fine."